If someone was to listen to our conversation today and apply what you're sharing, what would be the number one thing they would overcome?
I think one of the beautiful things that unfolds and blossoms for each and every one of us when we learn to overcome the fear and the doubt surrounding guidance in our own lives is this beautiful knowing unlocks for us. And we're guided into the most magical experiences that we couldn't even have dreamed of. There's a little bit of a surrender that goes on to the trusting of being guided by our teams of light on the other side, being connected to something greater than ourselves, and being part of that journey with others.
Mm. And last time you were here to talk about your last book, Signs, which I absolutely love, and I know so many of my friends do. You're now taking it a step further with being guided. Talk to me about the difference between signs and being guided.
Yeah, so it's been a journey how I've been guided in writing my books. My first book, The Light Between Us, was really about the truth I found out about how connected we all are and what that can mean for our lives and the lives of those around us. And Signs was really more like enough about me. This is about you. I don't expect anyone to believe me and what I'm saying because of my experiences. Go and try this for yourself. Create this language with your team of light on the other side. Ask for specific signs. You're going to get them. And guidance is what happens when you trust those signs. Mm-hmm. When you follow that path that those signs have created for you, that's when the magic happens. That's when you begin to not only be in communication with your team of light, you are led on a journey by them.
Mm. Now, who is your team of light? How do we know who this team of light is? How are we aware of who they are?
Such a great question. We all have a team of light. This is what I've come to understand over the many decades that I've done this work and connected with the other side. I always feel we have a 3-part team of light. The first part is God energy. It's this force of love that's inherent in us, that connects us to each other, that guides us onto our highest path. It's love, it's forgiveness, it's gratitude, it's all those beautiful emotions. That's how we're guided. The second part of our team of light, and everybody has this, is what I refer to as spirit guides. Now, throughout time and history, a lot of different religions have referred to this concept as guardian angels. And that's a fine word to use too. I just call them spirit guides. And from what I see, most people have between 1 and 3, sometimes more. And they're not anybody we knew this lifetime. They're just advanced angelic beings that our souls contracted with before we came here to Earth School, to be mentored and guided by. Because here in our school, we're having this collective lesson in love. And the only purpose is any opportunity we have to give our love or receive other people's loves. That's it. Our true currency is kindness, forgiveness, gratitude, love. And our spirit guides will help us navigate this earth. Some people are really in tune with their guides. And they'll say, oh, I know what my guides look like. I had a dream of one or I had a vision of one. And other people will have this vague sense of somehow being nudged sometimes or watched over, but they won't really understand what that is. And both are fine. And then the third part of our team of light is anyone we ever loved who's crossed to the other side. Pets included, ancestors we may have never met included, they all guide us as well. And they're there to help us every single day. So it's this really beautiful collaborative team on the other side that's there for us. We just need to open our minds and our hearts more to invite that guidance in and to also hear it when we receive it and honor it.
I love that. And I just want to reflect on that for a second for myself. And I hope when I do that, it gives you permission at home, or whether you're walking or whether you're driving to and from work or cooking right now while you're listening to us. I've always felt the presence of God energy in my life. So that one makes sense to me. And I love that you broaden that definition to forgiveness, love, gratitude. So I think we all know what that feels like, where we feel like someone's looking over us. There's shelter, there's pointing in the right direction. And sometimes even in times of difficulty, there's someone who's helping us carry our pain and whatever else it may be. The second one really stood out to me because I think this year I had a really strong experience of it. So my monk teacher, who's now 75 this year, his friend who was also a monk and they were peers, passed away maybe around over 20, 22 years ago.
Mhm.
And I never knew his friend. So my monk teacher spent around 6 weeks by his friend's bedside as he had cancer. And every day they would discuss God, they would meditate together, they would pray together, they would share their reflections and realizations. And I would always hear about this friend through my monk teacher and through our community. I never met him, I never knew him, I never saw him live. He passed away before I got engaged with the spiritual community. But I always felt really connected to his work. And his work was translating ancient wisdom for modern times. And so for me, I had a natural affinity to his work. And what was really fascinating was I would often pray to him or ask him for guidance on how to serve my teacher and my spiritual teacher, which is common in our culture of how we connect with our teachers. And I always felt that he'd been looking over me. By the way, I've never done a psychic medium session. I've never communicated with him directly.
Mhm.
I've never had a face-to-face with him in any sort of ethereal form. This is purely me internally feeling all of this. And what was really, really special this year is that I was asked to give a commencement speech at a university. And I got asked by Princeton of all universities. And there were a couple of universities that we were talking to. And I wasn't in charge of choosing the university. It was the university that chose me, and he went to Princeton.
Oh,
And
wow, what a sign.
And after all these years of kind of being, and I couldn't believe it. And then when I went to Princeton, I didn't even know this, but one of the faculty was showing me around their beautiful church that they have there. And on the side of the church, they have significant members or alumni of Princeton that have not plaques, but carvings in the stone.
Right.
And as we were walking past, I saw his name on the chair, and it was right there.
Wow.
And it was just one of those moments that for me, I couldn't help but think that he'd been a part of my journey up until now in so many ways. And again, like I said, I've never talked to him directly. I've never worked with a psychic medium. I've never had an interaction with him or even talked to my teacher about him. But the exchange is there. And so when you talk about this team of light and you talk about people that we've never even met, that we're connected to, I feel so connected to him. I could have tears in my eyes right now. Never met him in my entire life. Never embraced him, never held his hand, never looked him in the eyes physically. And so, yeah, I love when you broke down the team of light as those three areas. And then, of course, like you said, pets, people we've loved, which I think makes more sense to people because there's people we feel connected to. I love that description of the team of light. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
I love this story. And I love how guided you were to make that speech at Princeton and then all the light you put into the world by doing that. And I find it so interesting that you say, I've never, had a psychic mediumship reading. I've never spoken to him directly, because you have by directing your thoughts to him, by connecting in that beautiful, heartfelt way, by being on that shared mission of bringing light and meaning into people's journeys, you are so connected with him. I love that.
Yeah.
You called upon a spirit guide to step in and guide you.
Yeah,
That's magical.
Yeah, no, the reason why I was saying I haven't is because I want people to, I want people to almost become conscious of how we're doing this anyway.
Yes, and nobody ever needs a psychic medium. That is my big message. We have that doorway within us. We just need to recognize that it's there, honor it, trust it, and leave it open, which is how you live your life.
Yeah.
And look at the beautiful path you're guided on and all the light you bring to so many people by honoring that truth.
Yeah, I've always believed that we can be mentored by people we've never met. And I've spent a lot of my life studying other people's lives that I've admired, whether it was Martin Luther King, whether it was Malcolm X, Steve Jobs, people I've never met and never had access to. And I feel so connected to them in that way, simply through reading what they wrote. And I feel people are so alive in what they wrote and what they read and what they heard. And I think we take for granted, today we live in a world where you can listen to a podcast with anyone. But I truly believe that if someone picks up this book, they're interacting with you and then they're interacting with their team of light. Like there's just so much more available to us than we think. So how do we get over our logical, rational brain that just goes, Jay, that's just a crutch. That's just placebo. That's make believe. Your story's cute, but it's like whatever. That could have been any university. Princeton's a top university. Someone who just kind of looks at it through skepticism and cynicism. I'm assuming if we're skeptical and cynical, we can't connect. But maybe that's the beginning of the path. How do we start if our skeptical and cynical brain, which I have for sure as well about these things, what do we do with that?
Yeah, I think this is such a beautiful and important question, because I think that we arrive here as new souls and we don't really have language yet. And the way that we're communicating with our caregivers and feeling our environment is all through our intuitive and psychic senses. We are sensing and understanding this language of love and unseen energy. But then we start formal schooling. And we literally retrain our brain waves from all different parts of our brain only into the frontal lobe. This training period usually happens between age 5 and 7. So kindergarten, first grade, second grade. By that time, 98% of your brainwave activity is going to be exclusively in that frontal lobe. So what's that frontal lobe in charge of? And what have we learned there? It's in charge of analytical thinking, critical thinking, math, language skills, day-to-day living. It's in charge of logic, and it's based in this material paradigm of belief that if you can't see it and touch it, it doesn't exist. Now, truthfully, energy is the truth of our existence, and unseen energy all around us and unseen connection and unseen paths and guidance, that is the truth of what we're experiencing. But we are so trained into that frontal lobe. So the biggest challenge we're going to have when it comes to embracing this connection with our team of light and opening to it and really receiving that guidance is trusting it. And everybody, when they start creating a language of signs, here's the most typical thing that will happen. They'll ask their team of light for a very specific sign to let them know I'm on the right path or you're with me. Let's say they ask for a purple elephant. They'll get the purple elephant, and then their monkey mind will get in a wrestling match with the spiritual experience. And they'll hear this. All right, I don't know. That could have been a coincidence. So you'll say to your team of light, okay, just send me one more sign so I know that was a sign. And then you get the second sign. And you pause and you say, send me one more sign, send me one third sign, and then I'll totally trust it. You get the third sign and you're like, now I just totally believe for about a week. And then you're like, send me another sign. And I think this struggle is something that we just have to live with, because I don't think our brains are the source of our consciousness, nor are they the source of our connection to our team of light or each other. They're more like dunce caps that keep us from remembering that the other side is our true home and keep us from understanding and recognizing how we're all part of each other's journeys, how we're not really separate from one another. So it is a real challenge. But what I'm going to say is the more you explore it, the more you just keep testing it, the more you're going to open to it. And when you get to that point where you begin to truly trust it, your life shifts and transforms. And really, that's where the magic happens.
I think that's what it is for me in my own experience of whatever the connectivity is for me. It's moving from testing to trusting. And at some point you just realize I've tested this enough. I'm aware of it, and now I should trust it. And I can actually now look at what my life looks like when I trust it and when I don't.
Yes.
So now I'm no longer testing it. I'm actually just looking at my life going, okay, I made this decision. I was not trusting myself. I made it based on pros and cons and advantages and disadvantages.
Right.
And I didn't feel anything. Or I even knew I didn't feel it and I still said yes. And now look at where it went. But here I was actually clear and I trusted it. So I don't even need to test it anymore. I can actually see the difference between not trusting and trusting. And that becomes really clear to me. And I feel like in the last few years, I've made so many decisions where I haven't trusted because I thought there were better things to follow or people who knew more or whatever it may have been. And then there are times when I've fully trusted, and I've always been happier and more satisfied when I've fully trusted, always. And when I say trusted, and I want to help people with this, and I want you to help people with this, let's say someone's listening to us right now, Laura Lynne, and they're stuck in a bad relationship. They're stuck in a bad career that they hate. They're in a difficult situation. And they're almost looking up going, why me? Why is this happening to me? Like, what's wrong with me? The questions that we naturally ask when we're in positions of pain and stress and pressure. How does that person open up for guidance or trusting themselves when they feel that trusting themselves is what's got them into this mess?
Oh, wow. This is such a wonderful question. First, let me say I love the almost reflection you've done in your own life to think, let me look back at the choices I made that were not intuitively based, but logically based, and how that turned out for me versus how when I trusted this pull or this knowing or this guidance I was feeling, it led me to happiness. I think that's so important because intuition, connection, guidance, it's also often counterintuitive logically to what we think we should be doing in a logical way. So that's the first part of that. But you're really bringing up like self-doubt and the sense that we all get sometimes that I'm alone in the world. I'm not guided. I'm not connected to anything because if I were, I wouldn't be where I am right now. The most powerful thing that I have seen when I have read for people or gone into their energy field is so many times people are going through very dark experiences or they're feeling very overwhelmed and confused. But what I see about their life path is that they are completely on path, that this is some experience that their soul signed up for, whether it's because it's a lesson for them or they're a catalyst as a lesson for someone else, or there's something greater down the road that it will lead them to that they can't see in the moment. They're blinded to it. So I think a mistake we make is that when things get really difficult or we feel really lost, we automatically think we've taken a wrong turn or we're not connected to this beautiful team of light. The most important thing we can do in those moments is set an intention to be guided. We can surrender to the other side. We can say, look, I've tried everything I can in this direction, and I thought this was the answer, but I'm realizing I'm feeling lost. I need you to guide me. I need you to show me. I need you to bring the people into my path who I'm meant to meet, maybe the experiences I'm meant to have. And you can certainly create a language of signs where you ask for a song, a phrase, a number sequence, or some sort of creature. You also need to just be open to the guidance you're already been given. So I think it can really be a remarkable tool when we're in our darkest times because nobody is ever alone. The truth I know is that we are all so beloved and so guided, even when we think we're alone. And I think surrendering to that knowing or that truth, or just surrendering to saying, help me, show me, guide me, is all we need to do.
I think it's an old religious story where this man is on a boat in the middle of the ocean and his boat, is about to capsize and he's on top of the boat asking God to save him because he's a God-centered man. And then this other boat comes by and they say, hey, we'll save you, come on board. And he goes, no, I'm waiting for God. I've got God saving me. So then the boat goes past. And then this helicopter comes and goes, hey, we'll save you. And then he goes, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. Don't worry about it. I'll pray to God. And then the helicopter goes by. And then the plane comes by and the same thing has happened. And then he dies and then he ends up in heaven. And then the first thing he says to God is God, well, why didn't you save me? Obviously I love you. I'm waiting for you to save me. And God says, well, first I sent you the boat, then I sent you the helicopter, then I sent you the plane. Why didn't you take one of those? What was wrong with you? And I feel like sometimes that's what signs are like, that they don't always come. Talk to me about signs that come in the way you want, i.e. I want to see a particular bird or creature or purple elephant. But what about the signs that show up in the way you didn't ask for them?
Yeah, it's this beautiful co-collaborative language. So while we can certainly ask for specific signs, what we need to recognize is signs are all around us at all times. It's this language that's created also by your team of light. So they're going to put all sorts of signs on your path. Pay attention to license plates. Pay attention to things that show up in your social media feeds. Pay attention to people who are placed in your path to experiences that are offered to you. The universe is giving us invitations all the time. But if we don't have our minds and our hearts open, we miss them, right? So I think so often we're guided in a profound way that we miss because we're so stuck in this analytical way of thinking, in this materialistic way of thinking, that we miss the magic. And I think the story you just shared illustrates that completely. We're so set in the way we think we're going to receive it or exactly what we think we need to receive that we miss all the beautiful things being sent our way. I think too, it's a matter of setting an intention within ourselves where we say, help me see the signs, the guidance, the messages, the meaning that I am maybe missing in some ways.
How do we know the difference between our intuition and our mind?
That's such a great question. So here's what I can share about what I've learned about intuition versus what we're generating in our own minds, which is often, anxiety, chattering talk. It's what, meditation teachers call the monkey mind because it never stops and it tells you a story about your life and who you are and what's going on. And it's often very negative, especially to yourself. So how do we tell the difference between that and when we're really in a state of deep connection or we're receiving information from our team of light or in an intuitive way? Well, here's what I've come to learn. Intuition, messages from the other side, deep knowings, it never comes with emotion. It comes very neutrally. It will arrive as a knowing. That is a term called claircognizance, which means clear knowing. You don't know how you know it. It's no logical way you could possibly know it, but you know it. And it could be really wonderful information. It could say something like, tomorrow you're going to, have this incredible experience and meet this person who is one of your soulmates. But it won't come with any sort of like, oh my gosh, you might have a reaction after that, like, oh my gosh, tomorrow I'm going to meet this amazing person destined for my path. Or you might get this knowing, this download. Oftentimes it's referred to downloads. I've heard a lot of creative people talk about getting downloads, a sense of getting information from somewhere outside of themselves, right? You'll get a download that's maybe saying like, oh, your car's going to break down tomorrow, but it won't come with negative emotion. You'll receive that information and then you might react emotionally like, oh no, but it will come neutrally. And so if you're in a state of anxiety and fear about things, that is not coming from your team of light. That is not coming from God energy. It is not coming from your guides. It is not coming from your loved ones who are also guiding you. That's coming from that frontal lobe, monkey mind that's chattering. And I think it can be so helpful when we get into those moments where we have so many negative thoughts coming and we're so anxious to remind ourselves that that is not coming from our spiritual self. And a really easy way to kind of reconnect, I think, with our spiritual self and get grounded in our own light and reconnected with our team of light is through simple breath work. The other side's told me the moment that our soul really attaches to these physical bodies is the moment we take our first breath. The moment it leaves is with our last breath. So just by focusing on breathing, like in through your nose, fully and slowly and out through your mouth 3 times, you're going to get in that state of reconnection. So if anybody ever has a moment where they're like, oh, I'm feeling this thing, is this coming from me and my anxiety, or is this a knowing from the other side? Just do the little breath work and wait and see how you feel in the moments after.
One thing I've been reflecting on lately is how even the smallest choices can create a big impact over time. Whether it's choosing to spend a quiet night in to recharge, or making a decision that brings you closer to a long-term goal. Those moments of intention really matter. And when it comes to the choices we make with our money, that same mindset applies. I've learned that saving for the things that truly matter, like your first home or a reliable car, starts with small, thoughtful decisions. That's why I appreciate what State Farm is doing with their personal price plan. It gives you the power to personalize your plan and create an affordable price that works for your life. You can bundle your home and auto insurance in a way that supports your journey and your goals. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state. Like you were saying, when we're scrolling social media, we're just feeling envy, comparison, stress. Like there's not a space for knowing because it's clouded and so noisy and all of these other unhelpful, unhealthy, or maybe they're not unhelpful and unhealthy, maybe they're helpful and we're not looking at them right. But I find that the monkey mind is the best definition. It's just jumping from branch to branch to branch to branch to branch to branch to branch, and then you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And we've lost that ability to stay still and hear internally. I also think that we're living at a time where we think all the right answers are outside of us. So what does everyone else think is right? What do my friends think is right? Do my parents think this is good for me? And I think a lot of people have become dependent on thinking, well, if my parents think it's good for me, or if my family does, or if my friend do, then it is. And so we don't really even know how to start trusting ourselves again.
Yeah. And I think one of the most powerful and magical things we can do on our own spiritual journeys here is to trust that knowing, that light, that connection we have within ourselves. And when we trust that, it's a very different feeling. It's a feeling of peace. It's a feeling of calm. It's a feeling of knowing, and it's accessible to us. I think the most important relationship we ever have here while we're on Earth School is the one we have with ourselves. And if we disconnect from our truths or what we have as our knowing in terms of what our highest path might be, or that pull that we get inside sometimes where something lights us up and we want to do that, or we want to follow that. But then our monkey mind says, no, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Or you can't do that. You've got all these other things to do, or that's outside the norm for you. I think when we trust that inner voice, that inner knowing, that is our connection to our team of light. That's our connection to our highest self. And that's also our connection to our highest path. So it's really internal work. The doorway is within. You don't need anyone else to access it for you. You just need to start trusting your own light, trusting your own knowings, and use that as your inner guidance, as your inner compass.
And I think that that's fuzzy for people because it's almost like if you've done it long enough, it's become clearer, so you're aware. But if someone's just starting out, I imagine they're like, well, I don't know if this is trauma, if this is the past. Like, let's say someone's dating someone and there's a part of them that's like, I'm not sure they're the right person. But they don't know if that feeling is them wanting chaos when this person is more peaceful. Or maybe they truly don't have chemistry with this person. And they're wondering, and I think that's where people get lost, where it's like, how do I know it's the light? How do I know it's the inner voice versus all these thoughts I'm having? What can you do to help people right now that can encourage them to know how to connect with their knowing and move in that direction?
Yeah, I think that's such a great example, right? And again, it's that inner narrative we have, that questions. And our inner narratives are often very fear-based. They're often very mean to ourselves too. So if you're having these thoughts and you can recognize that they're coming from a place of fear, the most important step is to pause for a moment and then talk over the thoughts with love. So let's say you're having thoughts like, I don't know if I can trust myself. Am I in this wrong relationship? I don't know the answer. Well, maybe you're not supposed to know right now. It's a journey, and you'll know and you'll arrive at that knowing in divine timing. So what you need to do in those moments is in your thoughts, talk back to yourself and say, actually, I am a spirit in a human body having this beautiful experience of collective love. And I'm so excited to be open to another day of guidance. I trust that I'm in connection with my team of light, and I trust that I'm going to be guided into the experiences that I need to have to grow my own soul. And leave it, because we're all on journeys and we're not supposed to have the answers right away. And oftentimes we're so interconnected with other people's journeys that we might be there as a catalyst for theirs, or they're there as a lesson for us, or it goes both ways. We can't fast forward that. If we get into moments where we're confused, that's a wonderful opportunity for us to get really grounded in our own light and be patient and wait to be on this journey to find out our truths and our answers. We're all seekers. And if you're having a moment of confusion where you're like, I don't know, remember that you're a seeker and remember that there's a divine timeline going on here, and then surrender to that.
Yeah, I found for me 3 simple things that have helped me know the difference between my intuition and my mind. I found that my mind will be loud and my intuition will be quiet.
Yes.
So when my mind wants to say something to me, it will literally shout it at me like, this was how it was meant to be done. This is what you should be doing. What's wrong with you? It's really loud, whereas my intuition's quite quiet and be like, just, I feel this way. I think this, it's a lot more still and peaceful. I find that my mind is more directive and my intuition is more open. So my mind will say, this is the only thing.
Yes.
This is the only thing. This is the right thing. This is the wrong thing. Because my intuition will never say that. It will just say, I feel this is the direction you should go in. But it's not directive in this didactic way. And so there's freedom, there's choice, there's that. And then you just spark that by saying the third, where my mind is fear-based. It's like, oh, if you don't do this, it's going to be like this. Whereas my intuition will be like, this is the path to love. This is the path to peace. This is the path to happiness. This is the path to joy. And those 3 things have just really helped me know what voice I'm listening to, because it's very rare for my intuition to motivate me through fear or be loud or be very, very fatalistic in any way. And the mind wants to be all of those things.
That's so beautiful what
That's
you
helped
just
me.
shared.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The mind is fear-based and bossy and mean a lot of the time. That's like, and intuition is never. It's gentle. There's
Gentle,
a peace.
yeah.
There's an arrival of that knowing. It's kind. It's based in love. I love how eloquently you just explained that. I think that's such a helpful tool because so many of us can recognize when we're in those moments of having this very negative thought patterning. And it's so important to pause and recognize it, that that's just coming from a place of fear. And that's not divine. It's not sacred within your own being. That's beautiful how you just explained that.
It took me a while I was really trying to decipher because it gets messy. We get so many signals.
Life is so messy. The cacophony of noise and energy coming at us every day is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's hard to go back into our intuitive selves and listen to that quieter, softer, gentler voice. But it's so important.
Yeah, it's so important. And yeah, I had to do it because, it's so loud. It's so noisy. There's so many signals. And you can kind of get quite overwhelmed with the amount you have to process.
Yeah.
And so I love coming up with systems. It's almost like using the logical brain to help.
To crack the code of how to access the divine connection within.
Yeah,
Can I ask you, have you found that there are certain places where you almost automatically default into a state of connection with your team of light, where you're open more to the messages or the intuition that comes in?
Yeah, we have a meditation room here at the house. And so I have a space for that.
That's beautiful.
And so I'm very lucky to have that. But I've always had one in every home I've grown up in. It's in our tradition that you always have that space. And so I've always had that. Even when we had an apartment, it was a small corner of the apartment where we had that. And so that's definitely a place. I feel it when I'm in India for sure, when I'm back at the ashram and the monastery that I lived at. I feel it around certain people. I don't think it's always just places. There's people as well.
That's beautiful.
I feel it here for sure at home.
Yeah.
I've tried to make it feel that way wherever I am.
That's
and
beautiful.
I find that to be a place within that I have to go to so that the place is actually here.
I love that.
And therefore you're carrying it everywhere with you. So you don't feel, and I think purpose, you talk about purpose in the book. I think purpose is a big part of that someone once said to me, they said, Jay, you look so comfortable in all these places you go to that I think most people are uncomfortable in. And I said, it's because I only go to places I have a purpose. So I know why I'm there. And if I know why I'm there, then why would I be uncomfortable?
Right.
I'm only uncomfortable in places where I don't know why I'm there.
Wow.
And so that really helps in being clear, I feel. I think I want to talk to you about that clarity that we want to encourage people to have, because I think it starts with simpler things with, am I clear about how I spend my time? Am I clear about why I am where I am? Am I clear about why I'm having lunch or dinner with this person? Am I clear about why I'm in this group of people? And I find that if people paused to think about those things, they'd realize they weren't clear and therefore they didn't enjoy that person's company, or they didn't want to be around that group of people, and they come back feeling not great about themselves. And it all comes from a place of, well, why were you there?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
100%. I think so often we are just on autopilot. We're going through the motions. We're following whatever our monkey mind tells us. We're following the logic and the materialistic paradigm that's in front of us. And we forget about this beautiful light of intention we have. And we forget to focus on that. And so we're missing half the beauty. And we're also kind of going in the wrong direction at times. I think getting back into that relationship with ourselves, our inner selves, where we say to ourselves, what is the intention behind this? What is the meaning for me? And sometimes we might be guided into a situation and we might say to ourselves, why am I here? What is the meaning for me in this moment? And if we just get quiet, we can reconnect and we will get a download and we will be shown the why. You know, I find too, I love how you shared the practices you do to get in a state of connection. Although, Jay, I feel like you're always in a state of connection. That's what I see
Maybe
about
around you.
Your beautiful energy.
Maybe around you.
And that you help other people get into a state of connection. But, you know, so many people have told me that their states of connection almost happen accidentally in their daily lives. Oftentimes when they take showers, I think it's because our monkey mind is so distracted on shampooing our hair, doing this, that it's on this kind of autopilot of physicality that we get these downloads and connections from the other side. So I've heard so many entrepreneurs say, I got this idea in the shower. Or people will say like, I don't know, let me sleep on it. So the sleep state's another time we're in that state of like connection with our intuitive self and knowing. Driving, believe it or not, we'll get these downloads. Sometimes doing like menial tasks like cleaning up or something like that, we'll be in a state of connection. And I think what I find so beautiful about that is our teams of light are always looking for moments that they can jump right in, show us their presence, help us understand our journey more, guide us on our path more. It's just even better if you create the space in the way that you have, where maybe you have a little sacred space, or you open to the practice of meditation, it's so beautiful, right? So when we pray, we're directing our thoughts to the other side, and they're always heard. But when we meditate, we're listening back, we're listening for the guidance. And so what a wonderful practice to create that in our own lives.
Wow. I mean, I love how you just gave us so many simple moments in the day that we all have to do anyway, that can all be these moments of connection and downloading, because we often look at these things as so redundant or kind of a bit like, just things we have to do.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you more on the driving one. I always say to people always say to me, what music do you listen to in the car? And I said, when I'm on my own, I don't listen to anything, because I feel like that's like the most open channel I have.
Same.
And so I always drive in silence, even on unless it's late at night and I have to stay awake, then I have a late night drive playlist, because then I'm like, I don't want to go to sleep. But if I'm driving and my energy's good, I will drive in silence, because I find, I don't know what it is about that, where you're so right, where the monkey mind is off, you're on a monotonous highway, and you're still obviously attentive to the road and everything. I'm not closing my eyes, but there's a feeling of thoughts coming and ideas coming that I wouldn't unlock anywhere else.
I love that. And I love what you're saying about being in a state of silence. I think so many of us get trained from a young age to be in this state of noise and go, 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 and not have that silence. So how beautiful when we welcome the silence and we open to it, because that's where the guidance will really show up.
How do we do that when we've become what you just said? It's become so uncomfortable for people, and it is hard. Like, I empathize with people who have been overexposed to noise, sound, music. It makes you feel comfortable. It makes you feel safe, but you're not really getting anywhere, right? Like, you listen to your favorite playlist, it makes you feel great, and it does, but it doesn't really make you feel great. Like, it's not. Does that make sense? There's a difference between there's a difference between feeling good and then a good feeling.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
I think music can shift your energy and like change your vibration and bring all this light in and change your mood. But I think what you're talking about is it maybe doesn't connect us super fully with our own inner voice, inner guidance, team of light, downloads. And so one of my favorite recommendations to people. If you really want to try to create space to listen back, is to go on a walk. Don't put your earbuds in, just go for a walk. It's actually called a walking meditation when you go for a walk in nature, right? And you're going to be fascinated because what you end up doing is when you're in a state of silence on this walk, you start first to notice the small details of beauty around you. You know, these glimpses of God energy that's been put in your path. You might notice the beautiful sky that's also been put right in your path for a connection. And then you might also notice that you start getting information in a way that's other than your normal senses. I always talk about the psychic toolbox we all have. And I think understanding what these kind of what I call the four clairs are might help people access that part of themselves. And the other thing is, I think many of us are doing this automatically anyway. We might just not have a word for it. So, the first one's clairvoyance, and it means clear seeing. And it's this concept of, when we sleep at night and our physical eyes are closed, but we're vividly seeing things in our dreams. That's our psychic vision. It's what a lot of cultures have called the third eye. But we always have that available to us at all times. And so learn to trust it in your waking hours too. Like for me, I always kind of see people in colors. It's a form of synesthesia, a blending of senses. That can happen for anyone. You might learn that there's a whole kind of clairvoyant energy that's accessible to you to perceive in different ways. Or you might meet somebody and get little glimpses on your inner, mind's eye screen. Trust all that. There's also clairaudience, which means clear hearing, and it's when we hear a thought that comes to us, not from us. And this is a beautiful way that our teams of light, our loved ones on the other side, our spirit guides, God energy, can connect with us and guide us in a very direct way. But you know what I find happens when people have these moments of thoughts arriving to them? They tend to dismiss it. They're like, where did that come from? And just ignore it. Pay attention to that. Then there's claircognizance, which I've mentioned, which is clear knowing. And is this all of a sudden download of information where you just know something in every ounce of your being. And do you know how you can tell if you're really, really sharp and open claircognizantly? If your friends and maybe family members throughout your life have said to you, you give really good advice. Because what you're actually doing is you're tuning in to get information for them in a claircognizant way. And then there's clairsentience, which means clear feeling. And it's this idea of feeling all the unseen energy around us. So an example of that is meeting somebody for the first time and not just getting a 3D impression of them, but an energetic one as well. And people who are super open or who are empaths will also experience the emotion those people are experiencing, right? But that is an inner guidance too. We're being guided with that because sometimes we might feel very neutral to the person, no harm, no foul. Sometimes we might even have a little bit of an allergic reaction, right? And it's not really about judgment, but it's, you're being guided away from that person for a reason. Maybe they're not on your highest path to know. And then every now and then we'll just get this really magnetic pull to a person where we feel like we know them, but we've just met them, but we know we're meant to know them. We want to talk to them. We know we have a shared journey in some way. And I think trusting that inner guidance and creating space for that in our lives in whatever way we can, whether it's going for a walk alone, or if it's just being open, like next time you take a shower, say to your team light, okay, I'm all in. Give me the guidance. Just paying attention to those tools we all have within us to communicate, to get the information in new ways can transform our lives. One of the things I love too, when people really tune in and trust the guidance, is how it transforms the stories that they've often told themselves about everything they've already experienced in their past. A lot of times what our monkey minds might assess as a failure in our life actually isn't. It was a beautiful journey of understanding, or we did something extraordinary for someone else that we're not recognizing. And when we really tune into that guidance, we begin to unfold a new story within ourselves. And it can just make our past so much more beautiful and our future so much more beautiful and our present so much more beautiful.
Well, I think that's the challenge. One thing that you just touched on there is that we evaluate the success of something based on the result.
Yeah.
Not on the intention, not on the intuition, not on the input. And that is misleading because you could do something with the most beautiful intention and energy and intuitive knowing, and it may not work out externally, right? I think sometimes people will say, well, if this is the right person for me, send me a sign. but because you weren't clear in your question, right person for what?
Right.
They could be the right person for right now to teach you a lesson or for you to learn something. But the problem is when you say the words right person, you mean the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about how clear we have to be as we communicate, because I think I've heard a lot of people get the exact sign they want, but then that doesn't end up being the exact person they want.
Yeah, I love this question because I think what we're really doing is we're experiencing life in a very limited way when we ask questions like that. Here's the truth. The universe always dreams bigger for us than we can. And there is a connectivity that spans over time and a much bigger picture than we can often see in our little myopic view of the here and now or where we're at in our lives or the experience we're having. So the question I would love people to ask, instead of, is this the right person? Is this the right job? Is to change how we're asking the question. And here's how it could be asked. Is this person my highest experience to have in this moment? Am I on my highest path right now by having this journey with this person? Am I in my highest path right now by being in the career I'm in? If so, send me a sign. So the signs aren't the answers. They're the reassurance of our own inner guidance. It's that reassuring knowing that we have that we are beloved, we are guided. And even if we can't understand the experience we're having, there is something divine in it. It's trusting in our team of light. It's trusting in our purpose, even when we can't see it. And this is the hard part. It's surrendering to the experience. We all want the answers right away. There have been times that I'll get downloads in my life from my team of light, and they will say to me, this is all we're telling you right now. You are not allowed to know anything else. And I call it being blocked because I can see. It's as if there's a door in front of me they won't let me see. And in those moments, I know something divine is going on. It's that I'm meant to experience either a moment of patience or a moment of trust, or there's a bigger picture going on that I'm not meant to know the answers for. And it's in those moments where I have learned to surrender. And the moment I surrender to that, magical things unfold. Or within time, I'm shown how that mattered or why I was in that situation or why that didn't unfold in the timing maybe I wanted it to. But this truth isn't just a truth for me, it's a truth for us all. No one is forgotten by the universe. No experience is accidental. No relationship is accidental. There is a divine cord of light and meaning and connectivity in all things. Each and every one of us are part of each other's journeys in ways that we can't really see or fully understand when we're here, but trusting in it, trusting in that guidance, and asking for the guidance to be shown that I'm on my path. I'm having the experiences I've meant to right now, and I am not alone. That's the question we should be asking to be reassured of in beautiful ways. I'll just give you an example from my own life. My youngest daughter is applying to colleges this coming year. She's a senior.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, it's really an exciting time. And we toured all these colleges. And we went to one particular college that I loved. And I was like, if I were going to choose college again, this was the one I was going to choose. And in that exact moment of feeling like the state of like connection and being guided, even in where we were going, I glanced across the street. And randomly, out of the blue, was one single orange, like the fruit, an orange, which long ago I established with my team of light to mean you're completely on path. We're here with you. You're on your highest path. And I saw it and I got a download from my guides too. And they said to me, this is an example you can share because we're not telling you this is the college. We're telling you that the college she is meant to go to is being divinely orchestrated. She is being divinely guided, and just trust the process. Don't force anything, just experience. And it was such a beautiful moment for me because it took all that pressure off of like, let me analyze everything that's going on, the energy I'm feeling, what I think is the best match for her, then how to make things happen. No. It was a reminder to me how guided we all are, but how loved and supported we all are on the journey. And surrendering to that guidance, I think, makes our journeys so much more peaceful. It brings an ease, it brings a light, it brings a magic to it. And it makes us realize we're not the only ones who create things and drive things. There's a force so much greater than ourselves that's watching over, that's bringing us to these experiences and to the people we're meant to know and to the knowledge we're meant to gain in such a profound and beautiful way.
I love what you're saying. I was just taking a note down about something you mentioned that stood out to me. I love what you're saying because it helps so much with this life in which control has become our primary mechanism of growth. And I've always seen it as this beautiful balance between endeavor and surrender.
Yes,
which is this beautiful dance and play.
Yes.
But when endeavor becomes control and surrender doesn't exist, it becomes really hard actually, because you want everything to work out exactly how you planned it. And if it doesn't happen exactly how you planned it, then it's not good. It won't be good. It couldn't be. And I think, well, wait a minute, what if it was better? What if you learn something that becomes useful for the future? What if it being pushed back and further than you thought actually ended up making it the perfect timing? And it's, how do we open ourselves up to those ideas? I love what you're saying. How do you actually, because we've been so conditioned in a world of control where if it doesn't happen like this, then it's not going to happen and it's not right. Because I was just thinking about the other day, I was thinking about this really this morning. It was, my friend got married 8 years after me, but is having children before me. But we live in a world where we think a timeline has to go linearly, and people would have said to him, oh, you're getting married so late and now you'll have kids so late and whatever. And it's like, but it doesn't work like that. But we live in this life that's very rigid.
Yeah.
How do we break that? How do we move through that? Because how do we rise to peace and surrender, and when we live in a world that's all about control and planning?
How do we have a spiritual experience when we're living in such a materialistic paradigm of belief?
Yeah.
I think the most important thing we can do is recognize that our inner narrative, when it's mean, when it's bossy, when it's controlling, when it's telling us a story of what needs to happen in order to either be like the rest of the people or gain some control over our own lives, or especially if we get this kind of panicky feeling about how things are going, or did we miss, like that idea of like FOMO, fear of missing out, right? When we get that sense of, oh my goodness, I need to be there, I need to have done that already, or that needed to happen yesterday, or am I off path? Is to recognize that that's not your spiritual self. To recognize that there's a divine guidance for each and every person. And what is meant to be for one person in one timeline is the exact opposite of what might be for you in your timeline. It's to get into that state of surrender, to understanding that we are so loved and we are so guided, and that if we trust in it, the feeling we will get will be one of peace, of love, of gentleness. But I think actually what you're describing is part of our soul journey here. It's part of the ways that our souls are tested all the time, every day. And a lot of what you just described too has to do with comparison. You know, the other side taught me long ago that the only person we are ever competing with is ourselves. It's how we're growing. But yet, daily, we're going to be invited by this materialistic paradigm of belief here to be in competition with one another, to have power over each other, to get there first, to do this mentality of almost, dearth mentality. There's not enough of any one thing, or everything has to fit this mold. And if you don't do that, you're going to miss out. That's not truth at all. That's not how God energy works. That's not how guidance works. That's not why our souls are here. And so it's so easy to get caught up in that stream of panic and anxiety and control and false forms of power, right? I think it's so powerful when we pause, we take this sacred pause to recognize when we're feeling that way and where it's coming from. And there's this moment we have within ourselves where we get to reject that, where we say, you know what? I can't stop these negative thoughts. That monkey mind is chattering and I hear it loudly and clearly, but I reject that. You know what? No. My life is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. And I am so excited and I am so full of gratitude to be here and experience all the things I'm meant to experience in divine timing. And I surrender to that. It's a practice.
Yeah, it's a practice.
It's a practice.
And it's a both. It's a this and. I always try to remind people that I think we constantly just oscillate between extremes of, okay, nothing's in my control. Okay, everything's in my control. So we go from everything was in my control. Now I've read guided, and now nothing's in my. And it's like, well, that's not what you're saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Not at all. Yeah.
And I think that's the common misconception where, oh, I used to be in charge of everything. Now I just let the universe do what it wants. And it's like, well, the universe is only reciprocating with you and interacting with you. So it can't do something that you're not opening yourself up to.
Right.
It's endeavor and surrender together.
Yeah. It's this co-creation together. And it's also showing up as the best version of ourselves, challenging only ourselves and our sense of ourselves to be kinder, more loving, to look at the world with gratitude, to look at our own lives and what's happened to us with the lens of love, of looking, what love have I gained? Not what negativity or what experiences made me feel less than, but who has loved me? How have I found love? What can I be grateful for in this moment? Because when we get in that mindset, the spiritual self gets louder and the trust gets louder. And we learn to show up for ourselves in these really powerful and beautiful ways. Being guided and leading a guided life, it doesn't mean like sitting back and just giving up on everything and not. It means we hold ourselves accountable by doing this. We search ourselves to find what gifts we came here programmed with, because every single person comes programmed with unique gifts. And then we honor them. We hold sacred space within ourselves for them, and we share them with others. And then we come to our connection with others with the understanding that true power is not wielding gifts or, things over one another and being like, look what I have, or learn from me, or do this. It's an understanding that we all rise together. And by showing up with the best version of who we are, by honoring our gifts and like coming with a gracious heart and coming in trust and love and gratitude and using forgiveness as a tool, right? We're automatically elevating everybody else's experience as well. What I've learned when I've dived into like kind of the quantum physics of all this is that thoughts matter more than we realize. Thoughts are energy. Energy and matter are interchangeable. Einstein proved that, right? And thoughts, the way I'm shown, they're light energy. Our souls are light energy. And so every thought we have is either putting more light into the world or putting more darkness in. And it's an absolute truth. And so when we have these moments where we are being so mean to ourselves in our little monkey minds and blah, blah, telling ourselves a very mean story about an experience that we're having, or how lost we are on path, or how nothing has worked in our favor, or I tried this. It's so important to pause for that moment and tell ourselves a new story that, no. I'm having this spiritual experience, and trusting that in some way it's connected to a collective lesson in love for us all. And that we are more connected and part of each other's journeys than we can fathom, and welcoming that trust of that knowing in, because it will make a difference. We get into a very different state of being when we learn to trust in our own light and in our connection to one another and our teams of light on the other side.
Laura Lynne, I wanted to ask you, what do people come to you with the most often? What's the most common thing you get asked when people come to see you?
It's interesting because when I do readings, I tell people, save all your questions. Save them all till the end, because the other side always has a plan and guides every session I do. I'm not the mind of God. I can only share what a sitter, the person I'm reading for, team of light, shares with me. But I can tell you the most common things that they share. Oftentimes, if people come in grief, I find what the other side wants to reassure them of is just how present their loved ones are. And so their loved ones will come through and they'll start sharing all the ways they've already been connecting with them, whether it's through a dream visitation, whether it was through showing them a beautiful sky, sometimes even sending messages in clouds, sending rainbows, sending hearts, messing with the electricity, putting coins in their path, or sending creatures who navigate our world using electromagnetic fields, such as birds, butterflies, dragonflies, deer, fox, you name it. They like to show them how they've already shown up in their lives. The message they always share is our relationship, our love hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, it's gotten stronger. They love being able to be present at all times and in all places with their loved ones, right? So a lot of times a person's grief journey will be addressed, but the reassurance that's there is that the connection with their loved ones is inherent. These cords of love and connection cannot be broken. And the message is there too, that they don't need a session with me to ever access that. So a lot of times they're showing how present they've already been before we've ever had a session. I think that that's very common.
So would you have the download that they share something like, where you ask the person sitting in front of you, have you seen a, bluebird or whatever it may be, or have you seen a butterfly? And they would say, yeah, I noticed it in these moments. And then that's what you're hearing is the...
Yeah, so I would be having a conversation with, let's say, somebody's father's on the other side, and he might be showing me that he's sent cardinals and telling me that he sent these cardinals, but let's say his daughter got it and was like, is that a sign? And so then he sent double rainbows and she got that and she said, is that a sign? So I'll say this, your father's telling me he sent cardinals and rainbows and that you received them, and he wants you to trust that it's him. And that's usually where the person will have this moment of recognizing that they did push back on it, that they had known that deep down, that that was a form of communication. They just hadn't trusted it yet. So I think sometimes I'm just a facilitator in validating what the person already knows, or I look at myself as a teacher here more than a psychic medium. I happen to be a psychic medium, but my real goal is to teach people that nobody ever needs me. We all have this connection to those that we love who's crossed, to God energy, to our guides, to that trust in knowing and that guidance and that feeling of being loved and connected to anybody who we may have lost in the physical, right? I meant to teach them how to access that within themselves. And here's the thing, the doorway is there. All we need to do, the one component we each need to bring is to trust it. But that's harder than it sounds, right? Because again, we're getting all this messaging and we have from a very young age to not trust it, to only trust what we can see and touch and only come up with logical plans, and that there's not enough for everybody and you have to stick to like the status quo and all of these things. So it's very counterintuitive to make that shift within. I will also say that oftentimes I find a topic that's brought up by people's teams of light on the other side is where they might be in their particular career or relationship at the moment. And it's so interesting because the message is always, you're right where you're meant to be right now. It's more about the questions or the exploration that might be going on. And it might also be their team of light saying, we know 2 months ago you started feeling that you needed to make a shift in your career. And logically, it doesn't make sense because you're doing great. But they're showing me that you had this pull to do this artistic endeavor. And they want you to trust in that. And the person will say, that did happen exactly 2 months ago. I did have that, but I felt like I was getting too big for my britches. How dare I dream that? The universe is going to dream bigger for you. And if you're having these moments of feeling something or recognizing something that's coming from outside of yourself, trusting in it makes all the difference. This is the thing. Nobody needs a reading. Nobody ever does. We just need to know that that connection is there. And we need to have a belief in ourselves, in our own ability to be guided, to find our highest path, and trust our own light as well. Because I think sometimes we think we're not enough, or we think, oh, I should just stay smaller. I should stay this smaller version of myself. I shouldn't want more, or I shouldn't pay attention to this pull or this longing or this inspiration I got as a download or as a dream or this. It's paying attention to those moments within ourselves that are going to guide us the most, because we have the tools within.
Yeah, and it's starting somewhere small with those little things. Like last time you were here, I was talking about how every time I think of someone, I text them. And so it's a really simple, easy way. But every time I think of someone, I think, well, that's not random. And why don't I just tell them I'm thinking of them? I'm not asking for anything. I'm not messaging because I don't need anything. I'm just saying, hey, I was thinking of you, sending lots of love or whatever it may be. And 9 times out of 10, someone will respond and say, I was just thinking about you. I was just talking about you.
Yeah.
Oh, I really needed that right now.
Yes.
And I think it's doing it in those really small ways where you're taking an action based on the knowing rather than just looking around at you, testing the signs. Because I think that's the shift. I think if you're looking around you constantly, you're always looking outside of yourself. To me, there's some degree of a dependence that is being developed that is not yet self-trust. It's still saying the truth is outside of me. Whereas when you're just listening to a little inkling that says, oh, it's someone's birthday today, why don't you check in with them? Or, hey, did you just thought of this person, send them a message, call them up. Hey, why don't, whatever it may be. Oh, you saw something and you remembered something, buy it for them and give it to them whenever you see them. Like it's those little things that I think start to get you to trust your own knowing. Whereas if it's always, well, show me this universe, show me this, show me this, show me this, I don't know what you're doing then to really get there, if that makes sense.
So Jay, what you just described to a T is the difference between opening to the language of signs versus living a guided life. It's trusting all those pulls, all those cords of connection. And you know what? Our monkey minds might say like, oh, I'm really busy right now. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing and go text that person. But our spiritual self is saying, no. There's this web of light and connectivity. We're all part of each other's journeys. And there's this like amazing connection of light between us all. If it's like an invisible fishing line between us and each other here on earth and us and our loved ones on the other side, you tug on one end, the other person feels it. So the greatest way we can honor living a guided life is when we get those moments to act on them. And that's what we were talking about before, saying living a guided life isn't just surrendering and sitting back. It's learning to trust and then learning to have those thoughts, recognize them, and take action because of it. Because you might end up changing somebody's entire path that day or helping them avoid something or giving them this moment of feeling so loved and connected and reminded of who they are in a spiritual way. What a beautiful thing you do.
Like you said, everyone can do it. Like I don't have a power. That's what I'm saying, that I know last time you were like, everyone has powers. And what I'm trying to say in order to help everyone who's listening is like, I'm not claiming to have any ability. I'm just listening. And so anyone can do that. Everyone can do that.
Everybody has that power.
Yeah.
We all are psychic mediums.
Yeah.
We don't have to call ourselves that, but we all have that state of connectivity. And what you're sharing is so beautiful. I remember seeing a story on the internet that was posted by someone, and he posted a picture of a sunflower. And he said, I want to share this story. He said, I went on a date last night. It was really great. So I bought the sunflower that I was going to go leave on her car. And then I had this moment of going like, ooh, that's a little bit too intense. He said, so I just had this download, this sense that I was actually meant to give this sunflower to someone else. So he said, so I walked around and I just felt like that I'm meant to give it to this woman. So he walked over to her and he said, listen, I know this might sound a little weird. I bought this sunflower thinking I was going to give it to somebody else, but I'm feeling that it's actually meant for you. So I want to give it to you. I don't want to just leave it to die. I want to give it to you. And she started tearing up and she said, what you don't know is that this is my fiance's birthday and he crossed to the other side. And he used to always buy me sunflowers.
Wow.
And he said, and then I was weeping and she was weeping. But it's an exact example of being guided.
Wow.
We all have these moments because being guided, it's not just about our own journeys and finding our own highest path and the best relationship or the best career. Or that. It's about how we influence and affect each other's journeys, how we bring love and kindness, how we remind each other of the sacredness, the divine in all of us.
Yeah.
So exactly what you shared. It's doing those small actions that we feel pulled to do for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this example earlier where I know someone who was telling me about how their son has a particular affinity for Krishna, and Krishna in my tradition is the name of God. And they were saying that their son likes to look at books of Krishna and pictures of Krishna, and they go to a temple where they can see these. But then once when they went to this temple, there was no book, and their son was really sad that the book had gone and it had been misplaced. And so I had this feeling that I would give this gift. Now, there's lots of books of Krishna that exist in our tradition, but there's this one particular one that I love and have an affinity for. And I said, okay, well, next time I see them, I'm going to get this book for them. So I went to see them and I took this book as a surprise, and it was wrapped up. And when they opened the wrapping, this person like hugged the book. I was like, wow, that's beautiful reaction, but it's a very strong emotion.
Right.
And it was really interesting because I said, oh, like I probably didn't even say it. I just looked like, wow, that's a strong emotion to hug a book. And she said, thank you, and was very kind about it. And then she said, do you know Laura Lynne Jackson? And I said, yeah, I just interviewed her a couple of years ago. And I said, I have a mutual friends with her that I got introduced through. And she said, well, she told me that when I'm on the right path, I'll see peacocks. And that particular book cover I gave her is Krishna standing there. And when I say peacocks, the whole cover is covered in peacock feathers. And there's 2 peacocks right there. And she doesn't live in a place where she sees lots of peacocks. It's not common. And she said, that was my sign that I was on the right path. And I thought, how beautiful. I hadn't talked to you about her. I hadn't talked to her about you.
Right.
There was no colluding or sharing of information. And here we were living in this really beautiful moment of natural synergy that made her feel seen, made me feel really happy. You were the conduit and the connector of the two and it was just such a special moment. And I think we either become so skeptical or cynical or doubtful of these beautiful moments that we all have in our lives.
Yes.
Or we do one of 2 things. We either make them feel regular and insignificant, or we make them feel like astronomical. And the truth is we should just see them as beautiful and things we should start to notice more. I feel like there's not a need to look at them as insignificant or the most significant. It's beautiful to just look at them as how wonderful when we're all in sync.
Yes.
What's possible.
Sync, all in that flow of light. There's so many things I love about you sharing that story. The first I want to say is I love that the other side chose you to be the messenger. And I love that you got this knowing, I need to get this book and I'm not sure why, but I'm going to honor that knowing. You didn't even know you were the messenger of her sign, that she was on her highest path, right?
Zero idea. I just wanted to make her son
embrace
happy.
That. And then I love, right, that it showed the connectivity of the 3 of us here, because I've come to know too, like we have teams of light here on the ground where there are different soul groups working to help in different ways. And everybody you meet, you're meant to meet, right? So there's that. It's just so beautiful. And it's really trusting and understanding the power and the beauty we all have to show up for one another. And really the term I love to use is to be angels in each other's lives. Mm-hmm. There are so many moments where each of us are called to be part of something greater than ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if we ignore those little pulls or those nudges, we miss out on the beauty. I like just telling people too, if you ever come across a fundraiser, right? There's a lot of GoFundMe and there's so many worthy causes. Just give $5. Mm-hmm. Just give $5 and take a moment after you do it and try to feel the energy around it. Because when we come together as groups, as collective energy for a cause, for something good, out of love, out of kindness, there is a collective energy that we become part of. And it's so much bigger than ourselves. And so a really good way to feel that is to become part of something and then sense it. It's really magical. We're all part of that every day.
Yeah. And I just wrote that down, what you said, like it's every day.
Yeah.
It's every day if you notice it.
Yes.
And you're so right that we notice it and we doubt ourselves for noticing it, and then it goes away. Then it's still happening, but we don't see it at all.
Yeah.
And it stops showing up for us, not because it's not happening, but because we don't see it.
Yeah.
And it's like living in a home and putting all the blinds down and wondering where the sun is. And it's like, well, you've blocked yourself from it. So the sun can't get in. The sun's still there.
Yeah.
But it can't get in the house anymore.
That's such a great analogy. And I think anybody who is listening to this podcast, this episode found you for a reason. Like, this is your team of light reminding you that this is true for your life too. This isn't just true for the few stories we're sharing or the experiences we're having and talking about. It's true for every single listener out there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like opening to it and trusting it, because the magic is happening and it has been happening your whole life.
Yeah. Has anyone ever been upset, disappointed, or shocked by what they heard from the other side?
I'll tell you this. Anytime that I do a reading, I know two things. I know that anything that comes through is on the person's highest path to hear. And I also know that I'm not meant to filter anything. I think that there have been times when I read, I get for some reason, my guides work very closely with me to give me very specific timelines for people's experiences here. And sometimes, a person's guides or their loved ones on the other side will be sharing that they see they're going through a very difficult situation. And the person maybe I'm reading for wanted that resolved yesterday. And I'll be shown that it's going to be a 9-month journey till there's going to be a change, but that there is a sacredness in that 9 months, and they're meant to just hold space for this. It's not going to necessarily get easier, but they're part of this experience. And I can see people at times being like, wait, 9 months? There have been times where I've read for people who want to meet their soulmate, their significant other. And I remember one reading I did, and I was being shown a very specific timeline. And I said to the person, this person's coming. His name's going to start with a C, but you're not going to meet him for about 2.5 years. And this person was so upset. What do you mean? I have to wait 2.5 years? And granted, that's not the best news, right? Well, it turned out in the end, this person did meet the person with the C name. It did turn out to be this soulmate they married and had children with. But the person at the time of our reading was actually married to somebody else at the time. And was about to, because I think that spiritual contract, they had learned what they were supposed to learn. They ended up getting divorced. And then this unfolded, which is also really interesting when you think of marriages, right? And how sometimes we look at divorce as being the failure of a marriage, when actually that was exactly how that relationship was supposed to play out. Staying stuck in relationships that no longer serve us or help us to grow, that's a swamp. That's not going to help anybody. So getting to that moment within yourself where you say, like, I honor everything I gained from this relationship. I honor everything I learned. I release you in love, but I understand our contract is up and our journey is up, so that you can be brought on a path to something else. I think so often we are so mean to ourselves in terms of like how we frame what we've experienced in the past as a failure,
for sure,
or just like a waste of time. Nothing is a waste of time.
I actually say that often to people. I'm like, as humans, we have this ability to be like, well, the last 3 years were a waste of time. Now I'm in the right place.
Right?
And then 3 years from now, whatever it is, you said the same thing. Oh God, the last 1.5 years were a waste of time. Now I'm in the right place. And all you're doing is you're just taking away all this learning, growth, your struggle, your resilience away from yourself, rather than being like, well, these 3 years taught me X and now I have that.
Yeah.
And it's such a great point. And I didn't connect it to your work, but now I get that.
I love what you're bringing up too. Yeah, I spent almost 20 years as a high school English teacher. And at the end of every year, I would have students do a final assignment, which was a reflection of their journey through literature throughout the year, through their own creative writing throughout the year, what they learned, how they changed. And it would be so profound. And first they'd grumble when they got the assignment. Oh, I have to reflect on it. But I think it's such a powerful moment for each and every one of us to create some space to reflect. And what you're saying just makes me recognize, I think it would be so wonderful for everybody who's listening to this podcast to take a moment and maybe sit down quietly with a pen and paper or at your computer or in the notes section of your phone and get quiet and then write down a reflection of how you think the experiences you've had in your life have helped you grow and shift and change. Because when we get in these moments of journaling or writing too, we're in a state of connectivity with the other side, and information will be downloaded to us, and we can also hear our souls speak. And it can change how we're thinking about our entire journeys and our entire paths here.
I love that.
Yeah.
Laura Lynne, it has been such a joy talking to you again. Truly, I'm so grateful that you wrote Guided, The Secret Path to an Illuminated Life. I can't wait for people to read it.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoy our conversation so much because just being in your presence, I feel more tuned in. I feel I feel more naturally connected. And I think that says a lot for the work you do. And I'm so grateful for the work you do and reminding us of all these beautiful abilities that we all have, that we forget, that we doubt, that we put aside with our logical brains. And I'm just really, really thankful that we got to do this again. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be in conversation with you, and you give off so much light. And I think anybody listening can feel that vibration and feel that energy. I feel just listening to you speak and discuss and dive into these things expands them. So thank you for all the work you do in the world.
So thank you, Laura Lynne. I hope everyone will go and grab a copy of Guided, The Secret Path to an Illuminated Life. It's available right now. We will put the link into the comment section and into the description. Go and grab your copy, and please share on social media, TikTok and Instagram, what resonated with you, what connected with you, what landed with you, what's something that you're practicing, that you're experimenting with to get closer to your knowing, your trusting, and your intuition. Thank you again for listening wherever you are, and thank you to Laura Lynne Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you love this episode, you'll love my conversation with Dr. Joe Dispenza on why stress and overthinking negatively impacts your brain and heart, and how to change your habits that are on autopilot. Listen to it right now.
How many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's the moment of change. No one cares how many times you fell off the bicycle. If you ride the bicycle now, you ride the bike.